in Haiti at the same time. I'm Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room. We continue our coverage right now with John Roberts filling in for Campbell Brown. John?
Hi, everyone. Campbell Brown is off tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Roberts. Breaking news. Polls have just closed in Massachusetts. A cliffhanger special election in one of the very bluest states in the nation. The big question tonight, will Ted Kennedy's Senate seat fall into Republican hands? For the Obama White House, the stakes are enormous. The outcome could set back the president's plan to reform health care. The best political team in television is here to tell you everything that you need to know. And in Haiti tonight, some miraculous stories of survival. People are still being pulled alive out of the rubble 1 week after the devastating earthquake. We'll have the very latest on the ground in Haiti coming up. But we start with tonight's political drama in Massachusetts. Democratic candidate Martha Coakley, the state's attorney general, facing off against State Senator Scott Brown. At stake, the Senate seat held for 46 years by Ted Kennedy. And the Democratic candidate, according to the latest polls, is in trouble. CNN's chief national correspondent John King is at Republican Scott Brown's campaign party in Boston. And there are many people tonight, John, Democrats among them, who believe that could be a victory party tonight.
There's certainly a sense of excitement here, John, a great sense of anticipation. The candidate you mentioned, Scott Brown, he's a state senator. He is meeting right now with his campaign team. They are analyzing their own input, their own intelligence, if you will, from key precincts around the state, and they're waiting for the early returns. Consider the stakes you just highlighted. This was Teddy Kennedy's seat for more than 46 years, perhaps the best-known liberal in the United States. Just 14 months ago, President Obama carried this state by more than 25 points over John McCain, and yet the people of Massachusetts could send a message tonight by sending a Republican to Washington to replace Ted Kennedy. And Scott Brown has campaigned on the theme, "Make me the 41st senator," meaning he wants to go to Washington, break the Democratic 60-seat filibuster-proof majority in the Senate right now. Scott Brown has campaigned, again, in a state Obama carried by such a huge margin, by saying, I want to vote against the Obama health care plan. I want to fight the president. I think the stimulus plan was wrong. I think there's too much spending in Washington. He says he doesn't think the president is doing enough to create jobs. Thinks the president is not being bipartisan enough. And he mocked, John, one of the key appeals to independent voters here was anytime a Democrat described it as Kennedy's seat, we have to keep Kennedy's seat, Scott Brown would run around the state saying, no, this is the people's seat. And so you have a populist Republican who even the Democrats in this state concede has run a better campaign, had better ads, and has more energy. And Republicans here in Massachusetts think they are on the verge of what would be drama for them. It has been more than 30 years since there has been a Republican United States Senator from the state of Massachusetts. In this room tonight, they believe in just a few hours they may have a victorious candidate who will reshape not only this state's politics, but the dynamics in Congress, and without a doubt change the dynamic in this early month, the first month of the midterm election year, John.
John, where we talk about a political phenomenon, we talk about always on election night and actually leading up to it, is the word intensity. Particularly important with a special election like this because, you know, everybody's not coming out to vote for a slate of candidates. As far as Republican intensity, enthusiasm to get out and vote goes, what did we see heading into the polls today?
The intensity is off the charts in the Republican favor. The key question is that enough? Because Democrats still outnumber Republicans in Massachusetts by a 3-to-1 margin. There are more independents than there are Democrats or Republicans. Now, Scott Brown is polling very well at those independents, but there's not an independent party. There's not an apparatus to turn them out. So he needs that intensity to convince people to come out to vote. And we have seen relatively high turnout in some of the key places in the state where we would look for that. The question is that enough? The natural intensity, the independent anger, the anxiety over the economy and other issues, enough to overcome in Boston, in Worcester, in Springfield, in places where the Democrats can rely on the mayors, on the labor unions, on the African-American organizations. Is the independent and Republican intensity enough to overcome the Democratic apparatus? We'll have the answer to that question, John, pretty soon.
All right, John. John King for us tonight at Brown Party headquarters, where they're going to be having some sort of party tonight. Meantime, let's get a look at the other side of the political fence. Our national political correspondent Jessica Yellen is live at Democratic candidate Martha Coakley's headquarters in Boston. And what's the mood like there, Jessica?
John, I was just watching John King's report, and that was the first time I've seen Brown headquarters. Wow, it looked like a party there. It's nothing like that here. I have to say most of the people in this room are actually media. So there is not a lot of excitement here. There's a lot of anxiety, a worried anticipation that this candidate is not going to do what they expected even a month ago when she had a 30-point lead, when Democrats assumed it was a cakewalk for her, and when the Coakley campaign essentially coasted for many weeks. That's the consensus opinion of Democratic operatives in this state, that she just coasted, did not mount the kind of campaign one has to mount to win in a big state, and took it for granted, and they're very concerned she's going to pay the price tonight, John.
Jessica Yellen at Coakley headquarters. We'll keep checking back with you tonight. Right now, let's go to Washington. Bring in Wolf Blitzer, who'll be watching the returns all evening. Do we know anything at this point, Wolf?
The polls have closed. We know that, John. We know we're going to be spending a lot of time watching these results. Right now, 0% of the precincts have reported anything, although we do expect very soon to start getting the initial results. And we'll show them, obviously, throughout the night. We'll also get some early indications as to who seems to be on top and who's not doing necessarily all that well. So this is a moment that a lot of people have been waiting for. Remember, John, it's not just Massachusetts. This follows Democratic defeats in Virginia, Democratic defeat in New Jersey. If Massachusetts now sends the Democrats another such message, a state that Barack Obama carried only a year or so ago, he had 61.8% to John McCain's 36%. If Democratic Massachusetts goes Republican in the Senate race tonight, it's going to send a powerful message to the Democrats and a powerful message to Republicans, and the fate of health care reform hangs in the balance. So there's a lot going on.
Now, Wolf, typically on an election night, we have an elaborate exit polling operation. Gets us an early indication of how people are voting, which way the vote may be breaking for one candidate or the other, the issues that they voted on. We don't have that tonight, so are we getting all the results the old-fashioned way?
Yeah, well, but we'll get county-by-county results. They will be coming in. They will give us a strong indication. And at some point, once a lot of these votes have actually been counted, we might be able to project a winner, assuming that the results are decisive. We don't know if this is going to be a single-digit or a double-digit win for either of these candidates, but we've got a lot of experts working behind the scenes right here in Washington, looking at all those ballots, looking at all the votes, and so we should be getting some results fairly soon, John. All
right, Wolf Blitzer for us tonight. Wolf, we'll keep checking back with you. Our senior political analyst, Gloria Borger, is in Washington tonight as well. And Gloria, a number of obvious questions that arise out of this election. If the Republican manages to take Kennedy's seat, what does it do to health care? What does the White House do to go forward with its agenda? And what does it mean for November?
Well, you know, those questions are exactly the questions they're talking about at the White House right now. They know that they have to figure out a way to get something done on health care reform. Honestly, they don't have any good choices here, because if they push something through very quickly, they could be accused of using gimmicks. And that's not a very good choice for them. Losing health care reform was almost unimaginable for them, the president's #1 domestic priority. If they lose, they look like they can't govern the country as a Democratic majority. They look ineffectual and weak. So that is a terrific, terrific problem for them. I think you're going to see them try and get something done very quickly on health care reform, one way or another, and then pivot in the State of the Union. Pivot and say, I heard you. I've heard the voters. We have to think about jobs. I have to think about you. And you're going to hear, I would believe, a more populist Barack Obama, because that is actually what seems to be working in Massachusetts.
All right. Well, it gives them only a week to pivot, because as we know, next Wednesday is the State of the Union address.
They're pretty good at that, John.
Gloria, stay with us, because we'll get you back with some of the other members of the best political team on television to kick this around in our next segment here. In Massachusetts, meantime, the voters have spoken, and if you had any doubt about the national significance of this election, listen to what some of them told us just a little while ago.
I want a change in Washington. I want things to change. I want the health care to go down in defeat. And that's why I'm here.
Obama has been in office long enough now that he's catching the blame for all of the stuff that he inherited. He hasn't made it go away yet. Nobody could have. I wish somebody could. If I believed that somebody could, I'd say, yeah, get them in there.
To put so much energy into the health care bill when there are so many other issues out there. Of course it's an important issue, and of course it's important for everybody to have health care, but I think to invest so much energy into it is to the detriment of some other things that need to be focused on.
This race has become a mandate for something much larger. We've been working hard on Martha Coakley's race, not only because we feel that she's the right person for Massachusetts, but also because we understand the significance of this race.
A single special election, typically they don't matter a whole lot, but this one certainly does. We'll be back in a minute with the best political team on television as we await results in that Massachusetts Senate race. Plus, breaking news out of Haiti tonight. Survivors are still being pulled from the rubble this evening after being buried alive for a week. Remarkable tales of survival. Along with our special election coverage tonight, we are also seeing incredible new images coming out of Haiti. A woman in her 70s, trapped since the quake hit last Tuesday, has been pulled alive from the rubble near Haiti's National Cathedral. Right now, rescue teams are carefully trying to get to 4 other trapped survivors in that same location. But once rescued, there is a new battle to get them help. We're going to go live to Haiti in just a few minutes, so stay with us for that. We're also watching tonight's breaking news, the Massachusetts Senate race that could cost the Democrats their Senate supermajority and bring the president's health care agenda to a screeching halt. Let's bring in now the best political team on television. It's a big one tonight in Washington. Democratic strategist and CNN contributor Paul Begala, Republican consultant Alex Castellanos, Eric Erickson, managing editor of the website RedState.com, and CNN senior political analyst Gloria Borger. With me here in New York is John Avlon, a contributor to the Daily Beast, and CNN senior congressional correspondent Dana Bash is on Capitol Hill. I'd love to spend some time kicking around topics, folks, but we're out of it. Just introducing the panel. John, let's start with you. Independents are going to decide this race. As John King was saying, 51% of voters in Massachusetts are unenrolled, meaning that they're more or less independent. And Brown is leading 2-1 among independents. Why is he getting their vote?
Well, because independents have turned against Barack Obama and the Democratic control of Congress since the spring on overspending and the growth of government. So this should be a real wake-up call to both parties. Brown's been able to connect with them. Party's a pro-choice Republican, fits well with their beliefs. But it's a real wake-up call to Democrats. Business as usual anymore, not cutting it, 51% even in Massachusetts.
Paul Begala, we heard from a voter just before we went to the commercial break who says, I want change in Washington. I seem to remember that slogan from somewhere not too long ago. I think I saw it on a T-shirt. What's going on?
Yeah, sound familiar. I think John Avlon makes good points. People in the middle particularly, but actually at both fringes as well, they really want change. That's how we got Barack Obama in there. And the challenge for the Democrats will be, should Scott Brown win? And I think he's going to, frankly. It looks like he's run a much better campaign in a very difficult state for a Republican. Democrats are going to have to reconnect with those voters and try to make the case to them, and I think they can, that they are in fact the change in that those deficits that all those independents hate, they were caused by the other guys. I mean, those were all Republican Bush deficits that the Democrats are now trying to pay down. And I think they have to make that case. They have not done so. They certainly haven't done so in Massachusetts.
Alex Castellanos, Martha Coakley was 15 points up at the turn of the new year. What was it that Brown did to turn around his fortunes in such a grand fashion?
Well, Brown caught a wave, and it's the same wave that hit New Jersey. It's the same wave that hit Virginia, and now it's hit Massachusetts. And basically, this is populism. This is Washington's out of control, and Americans want to do something about it. This is America saying, look, children shouldn't play with matches. You guys are setting the country on fire with spending. And with all due respect to my good friend Paul, it wasn't George Bush that drove America's debt to $13 trillion. That's what the Obama administration is doing.
Yes,
so that's what things I think people are upset about. What did Brown do? He campaigned and said, you've got a choice. It's either one of us or one of them. A populist campaign, and that's what worked.
Well, certainly, Alex, President Bush added $5 trillion to the debt and drove it near $13 trillion.
And Republicans got kicked out of office for that. And so the Democrats' answer to that fire was to pour kerosene on it. They doubled down on what Republicans did wrong. And I think voters are saying a pox right now in both of your houses, a new, fresh-faced Republican Party, a bottom-up Republican Party that says, you know what, why don't we listen to the American people and do some common sense things like not spend more than we take in, is what's working at the polls. And I think Paul's right. It's a wake-up call.
Go ahead, Gloria.
You know, a majority, 76% of the voters in the presidential election say they wanted change. A majority of independents now say this isn't the change they wanted. And I think that's the problem for President Obama, and it's the problem for Martha Coakley tonight. What they didn't want is this notion of big government that they think they are getting. And that may be a communication problem, as the White House says, we need to communicate better, or it may be an issue problem, which is that maybe they wanted health care reform, but they didn't want huge health care reform. And their jobs aren't coming back, but they see that Wall Street folks are getting bonuses. So there's a disconnect there that they did not expect from President Obama, and I think she's suffering from.
Gloria, if I could add, I think there is a communications problem, but it's not that Washington isn't communicating, it's that Washington isn't listening. Voters all this summer in August said, stop, slow down. We don't know what you're passing in these 2,000-page bills, but we know how much they cost. And you know what the Obama administration said? We're going to keep right on doing it. So it's now not the issues, it's that Washington doesn't listen.
Folks, we got to take a pause. Stay with us for just a second. We'll be right back with more on this. And Wolf Blitzer's got some early results. We want to take a quick break. We'll get back to Dana and Eric right after this. Stay with us. Breaking news now out of Massachusetts and the special election there to replace Senator Ted Kennedy. Martha Coakley, the Democratic candidate against Scott Brown. Let's go to Wolf Blitzer. He's got some early results. Hi, Wolf.
Very early. 1% of the precincts have now reported. John, you can take a look. Scott Brown, the Republican, with 54% to Martha Coakley's 45%. About 13,000 votes have actually been cast. And he's developing a slight lead, but it's still very, very early. We're going to see these numbers changing, though, very rapidly over the next hour or so because a lot of these counties are going to be reporting the precincts coming in. So we're going to get a good taste of what's going on in Massachusetts. At some point, John, I suspect we'll be able to project a winner, assuming one of these candidates has a decisive lead. But you know what? We'll do it the old-fashioned way. We'll wait to see the votes actually counted.
Yeah, as we should point out again, Wolf, we got no exit polling data tonight, so as you said, we're doing it the old-fashioned way. Let's get back to the best political team on television. And Dana Bash, before we went to the break, Alex Castellanos said that Scott Brown caught a wave. Do you think he really caught a wave, or was Martha Coakley just not the candidate that people were looking for in Massachusetts? Did she have some missteps?
I think the answer to that question is both. Alex is right, and there were some missteps, many missteps. And talk to any Democrat, they are very eager to tell you about that here in Capitol Hill. But in terms of the question of the wave, I've talked to just even tonight. In fact, I should tell you that I'm standing outside a meeting of all House Democrats. I talked to several of them, some of whom are in districts that are not Massachusetts. They are pretty red districts, and they are Democrats representing them. And they said, we didn't need Massachusetts to tell us that there are big problems out there. People are really not happy with the way things are going here, whether it's about the way Congress is spending, the way things haven't really changed very much, or health care. And one interesting thing, Alex says that that things went too fast on health care. What I'm hearing from some Democrats is it took too long. They spent too long, months and months and months debating and talking about health care and not focused enough on the issues that they're hearing about back home. Actually, the number one issue, jobs.
And Eric Erickson, let's hear from you here. Yeah. So a year ago, let me just put this question to you, this thought to you. A year ago, the story was Republicans were decimated. How are they ever going to come back from this? Since then, we've had turnovers in New Jersey and Virginia in the governorships, potential win here in this very important Senate district in Massachusetts. Going forward in 2010, if you're a Republican, how are you feeling, and how do you think this is going to play out in November?
Well, those Republicans, they're just never competitive in New England. At least that's what we've been hearing for the past year. Jim DeMint wanted Waterloo on health care. Massachusetts is delivering Waterloo tonight, it looks like. We don't know for sure, but even if Scott Brown gets close, the fact that we're taking seriously that a Republican in Massachusetts is running close to the Democrat establishment candidate. Frankly, if I were a Democrat or a Republican establishment guy, I would be a little bit sick tonight because Scott Brown ran against the Republican establishment and he ran against the Democratic establishment. The National Republican Senate Committee gave only $500,000 and did so without anybody under the radar, so they wouldn't get credit for it. Meanwhile, Jim DeMint goes out with his Senate Conservative Fund and pounds the table for Scott Brown. And he's going to win, it looks like. The irony here, though, is that Obama's unicorn of hope and change is dying under Ted Kennedy. That if Ted Kennedy had decided to resign or retire when he found out just how bad his health was, instead of wanting to be a martyr for the cause, the Democrats wouldn't be in this position.
Well, this is all about independence here. No, this is all about
let Paul just make a point there about this, about his memory.
Yeah,
go ahead, Paul.
Let me defend Senator Kennedy's memory here from what was really a low blow. He gave every ounce of his energy until the day he died to try to represent the people of Massachusetts, and they loved him. And if he were on the ballot today, even with the wave that Alex talks about, it would be a landslide for Ted Kennedy. Campaigns matter and candidates matter, and Teddy Kennedy would have won today. I doubt Eric would even try to argue at that
I
point.
think
He'd
Ted
win in a
Kennedy
landslide
would win.
today.
But, had Ted Kennedy gone on and resigned instead of trying to be the person around whom everyone rallied, the Democrats would not be in the position.
All right, let's let John Avalon
One thing independents hate is this partisan bickering back and forth, and that's in part what this is a reaction to, this old play-to-the-base politics that they're trying to declare independence for a long time. There are two things this is really about. One, independents have been deficit hawks since at least Ross Perot, and the overspending has been alienating them. The second thing is that independents don't like unified control of government. They see it leads to ideological arrogance and legislative overreach, and that's the other thing that's happening tonight.
Let's hold on that point. Gloria, if we could, folks, sorry, just hold on that point because we got some more breaking news. Wolf Blitzer's got some more results. We'll get right back to you. Wolf.
All right, John, 5% of the precincts have now reported. The numbers are coming in quickly. And take a look. It's narrowed a little bit. Scott Brown still ahead with 52%, to Martha Coakley 47%, about 54,000 votes for Scott Brown, 49,000 for Martha Coakley. So it's narrowed a little bit. It was 55-45. Now it's tightening up a little bit. But remember, only 5% of the precincts have reported. It's still early, but get ready. We're told a lot more precincts are about to report.
All right, Wolf Blitzer, we'll keep going back to you. Let's wrap it up with our political panel. Just got about a minute left, folks. So some quick thoughts. Gloria, you were about to say?
Well, I was just going to go back to the checks and balances. You're right. People do like checks and balances. They don't like one-party rule. They like a confident president, but they don't like a president they believe is arrogant and telling them what they should believe is good for them. And they didn't make the case to the American public that this health care bill is good for them.
All right, Alex, final thought?
This may be actually a good day for Barack Obama in the sense that instead of waiting till November of this coming year to really lose his Democratic majority in the House, he in effect may lose it now. Democrats may start moving away from him, and he may have to govern in a more bipartisan way, reaching out to Republicans, moving away from the left, more towards the center and some conservative ideals. It may center this administration.
Paul?
I think this is not about left and right. I think it's about up and down. Alex earlier talked about populism, and that looks like why Scott Brown did so well. Let's watch these Democrats. See if they take on Wall Street a little stronger with some of the reforms we need. See if they take on Wall Street to make them pay back the TARP money through this fee that the president has proposed. I think 2010 could be an up-down populist argument from the Democratic side this time. Instead of the Republican side.
And John, I'll just tell you on Capitol Hill, Democrats insist that they do want to do that. That is their plan for the next 10 months before all House Democrats have to go to the polls. The question is, how long is it going to take to finish health care now that it is, frankly, a complete mess if, in fact, the results go the way we think they will?
I hope the Democrats keep smoking what they're smoking. In 2008, the independents wanted to prove they weren't really racist, and in 2009 and since, they've been proven they're not socialist either.
All right. Thanks very much, folks. We'll keep you on standby. Don't leave us just yet, just in case we need to come back on a point. But Wolf Blitzer's got some more results for us in Washington. Hi, Wolf.
Now 7%, John, of the precincts have reported, tightening up once again a little bit more. But remember, it's still early. 51% for Scott Brown, the Republican, 48% for Martha Coakley, the Democrat, 69,600 to 65,500. But it's still early. 7% are coming in, and we're told we're going to be getting a lot more fairly soon. So we'll check back, and we'll get that information to our viewers.
The race tightening up. Wolf, we'll keep going back to you, and we'll be back right after this with more coverage of the catastrophe in Haiti. Stay with us. Our breaking news as we watch the returns coming out of Massachusetts for the special election for the seat that was Ted Kennedy's for more than 46 years. And here's the latest figures right now. Scott Brown, the Republican, is leading. Well, I don't know who that was. He's leading Martha Coakley 52 to 47%. Our last report from Wolf, it had tightened up a little. It was 51-48. Now stretching out the lead again. But as you can see, only a small percentage of the vote counted so far. It's coming in fast and furious, though, folks, so stay with us. To breaking news out of Haiti, and right now rescuers in Port-au-Prince are racing to save 4 people trapped for a week in the rubble of the earthquake. This is going on near the ruins of the National Cathedral. Searchers have good reason to believe that the victims are still alive under the rubble. They already have one incredible success story from today. Our Ivan Watson is on the scene and joins us now with the very latest. What's happening now, Ivan?
Well, right now, John, we've had an arrival within the last hour and a half of a larger contingent of Polish and German rescue workers, and they brought big lights that have lit up the area. The team that was here already, they were working practically in the darkness except from the headlights of our own cars here. Now, they say they have not had any contact with the victims inside in more than 2 hours. The last contact was one of the sniffer dogs that sensed that there was somebody still alive under the rubble. Around 2 p.m. local time, so more than 6 hours ago, they heard tapping intermittently coming from inside. Now, it is very difficult work. They're digging through sand and gravel, and the rescue workers say they've dug down more than 10 yards through this mountain of rubble here to the ground floor. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see the conditions that they're operating in over here. Now, they are not 100% sure if there are, in fact, 2 victims there. They've gotten some indications of life from some mine rescue equipment earlier in the day, and then from dogs that have been working in the area. There is a Mexican canine team here, John, that has been moving around, and they recently found the body of a priest because we are operating really in the shadow of the ruined National Cathedral. Now, incredibly, miraculously, you could say, hours ago, Anderson Cooper and his team here, they witnessed the escape, the rescue of a woman in her 70s, Anna Zizi, and she was treated at an outdoor field clinic just a block away from here and recently airlifted by a Coast Guard helicopter, we believe, for treatment aboard the U.S. ship, the USS Bataan. So it has been a remarkable day here, and the work is still underway. The new team that has come in with some heavier equipment, some pneumatic hammers, and they continue on this very, very delicate work to try to see if there are more survivors underneath this rubble, John.
Ivan, the place where the rescue workers are looking now, where is that in relation to where this woman was pulled out just a little while ago? And do you know the condition of the rubble where she was, how big a space she was in, how tight that might be, how much room that the rescue workers have to work in there?
It was just described to me that in the current operation, they were in such a narrow space that they could only work 2 people at a time. And they're digging, I'll just show you, they're digging, John, through sand and rubble and gravel, basically. This is really difficult material to try to move through, and the danger here is that it can then collapse in on the rescuers and create yet another emergency here. So they have to move very, very slowly, shoring things up as they go. And they don't even, in this case, know how many yards away the exact location of the possible survivors might in fact be. And one thing even complicating this further, there is nobody on the ground here who is giving them a map of the architecture of this building, telling them which room survivors might have been in. They believe there might have been as many as 20 children here. That's what German rescue workers are telling me, and several adults. It is painstaking, dangerous work, but help has come on the way. There are much heavier equipment here. There are now generators and lights, as well as some security, which is also essential to help protect these people as they're doing this work. Because, John, I have to say, a block down, it's pitch black. The scene looks downright apocalyptic, with entire buildings down, fires guttering from some of the survivors that are just camping out in the darkness. Very difficult situation.
It is difficult to comprehend the extent of the devastation there. Ivan Watson for us on the scene this evening. And Ivan, I know you're going to be staying there and reporting throughout the evening on what's going on, so we look forward to getting back to you in just a little while. More than ever, the rescue operation is a race against time. It is now 8 days since the earthquake. Typically, the chances of survival dwindle after 3 or 4 days. In fact, 90% of earthquake survivors are typically rescued within the first 24 hours. Of course, miracles do happen. The longest case of an earthquake survivor being rescued is 14 days. And we are seeing a lot of people being brought out alive a week into the aftermath of this earthquake. So incredible what's going on in the scene there in Haiti. The scenes of devastation can be difficult to watch, but then you come across something like this. Take a look at this. It's an urban search and rescue team from Los Angeles County pulling a woman from the ruins of a collapsed building. And then something extraordinary happens. The crowd surrounding them bursts into applause and chants of USA, USA. Listen. Haiti coverage, we put a special focus on those most at risk, Haiti's children. Before the quake struck, dozens of American families were in the process of adopting Haitian orphans. Tonight, many of those children are making their way to new homes here in the United States. We'll show you. Plus, early results from the Massachusetts Senate race. We're following it all throughout the night. Stay with us. Getting the returns in the Senate race in Massachusetts. Let's go to Wolf Blitzer, who's got the breaking news. What are the numbers looking like now,
Almost
Wolf?
400,000 have already been counted in Massachusetts. And Scott Brown, the Republican, holding steady. He's got 52% to 47%, 200,000 to 182,000, 17% of the precincts reporting. So he's got about an 18,000 vote margin right now. This is 17%, but they're coming in very quickly. So I suspect we'll have a lot more precincts reporting over the next several minutes, John, so we'll update you as we get more information. But right now, the Republicans still ahead.
All right, Wolf Blitzer for us tonight. Wolf, thanks. One story that we're really focused on in Haiti is the plight of that country's children. Here's a scene of hope from today. 53 Haitian orphans ranging in age from just 9 months to 12 years old are safe in the United States right now. Their orphanage in Port-au-Prince was destroyed. They arrived in Pittsburgh today. Adoptions were already underway for most of the children. The rest will be placed in foster care until a family can be found. Well, countless other children are still caught in Haiti's rubble and chaos. Soledad O'Brien is live for us in Port-au-Prince tonight with the story of one baby girl. She's only a week old, and her parents are nowhere to be found. Hi, Soledad.
Hi there, and it's sort of a big mystery. One of the reasons it's so hard to get into Jacmel, which is where we found this baby, about 25 miles outside of Port-au-Prince, is the roads. And if you see, look, there's boulders you had to drive by. They've been able to finally clear the roads, and that's allowed more aid to get through. And so one of the things we saw today while we were in the middle of doing live shots, all of a sudden someone said, there's a baby. And it turned out, in fact, a week-old baby had been found. Someone found this baby lying by a ravine, but of course many questions. Didn't look like the baby had been trapped in any rubble of the earthquake. In fact, the umbilical cord still attached. Looked like the baby had been born. But where was the mother? Was the baby abandoned? Was, in fact, the mother dead? Had she died in the quake? Unclear. They took that baby, swaddled it after giving it a little first aid treatment. She didn't need much. They estimated the baby's age to be about a week, which of course would be the same time approximately when the earthquake struck. And they put it in a car and then took that baby to the UN compound where she will get some more help. But it's clearly been chaotic. You know, there in Jacmel they have tent cities much smaller than they have in Port-au-Prince. But an indication, I think, with a baby being sort of just discovered of how chaotic it is with people living on the streets. It's been a real problem there. Hospitals as well have told us the chaos that they're in terms of what they need. They need anesthesiologists desperately. They need orthopedists to be able to do surgery. They say what they're able to do now is all that they can do, and they need to see some, for the patients who have these severe brain trauma, severe head trauma, they need something else more than these doctors who've been working around the clock but are internists and pediatricians more than they can provide. So they literally were begging us for help. They see 70 patients a day at this makeshift hospital in Jacmel. Finally, the U.S. Marines have landed. They came to Rio Grande, which is not too far away from Jacmel. It's between Port-au-Prince, actually, and Jacmel. And we had a chance to see them as we were heading back home, handing out MREs and water to a large crowd, 1,000 people or so who had come by to get some supplies. So for these areas that are outside of Port-au-Prince, where we have been getting some frantic messages about the fact that they've been ignored, that help has been slow to get there, it's really a sign, I think, that things are beginning to turn as far as some supplies and some services go. John?
All right. And just so that folks can orient themselves to where this is on the other side of the epicenter to Port-au-Prince. It's on the southern coast of Haiti, and we'll keep watching that story very closely. Soledad O'Brien. Soledad, thanks so much, and we'll be back right after this. Breaking news out of Massachusetts. The latest numbers in the Senate race. Our Wolf Blitzer is in Washington. Wolf, what are the numbers, and do we have any idea where the vote is coming in from?
We don't. I know they're coming in county by county, and about a quarter of the precincts have now reported. More than 500,000 votes have been counted. Scott Brown, the Republican, continues to maintain his advantage, 52% to 47%. He's got about 28,000 or so margin that he's ahead, 288,000 to 260,000. This is a quarter of the precincts now reporting. It's been steady for him, as you know, John, throughout ever since they started counting the votes, but still 75% of the precincts have not yet reported. We do expect many of them to be reporting within the next half hour or so the numbers will change.
We'll stick with it. Wolf, thanks. As we have been showing you, there are still countless Haitian orphans in need of help. Bobby and Sherry Burnett run their own orphanage in Haiti. It's outside of Port-au-Prince as part of their relief organization, Love a Child. We last spoke to them on Friday evening. Today, we wanted to know what's been going on there ever since.
I would say the situation is fine. We've just had so many people come in who are coming across the border who can't find a place to stay, a hotel. And I think that our orphanage has kind of like become a safe haven for them. They've stayed here, all kinds of people I don't even know. We've had to take in an orphanage that was affected by the earthquake. So we got 11 more kids in that, added to our orphan kids.
Plus their staff.
There are so many people staying in this orphanage that I can't even count them all.
Wow.
And we've got so many victims there that we set up a makeshift disaster surgery center and relief center there for the wounded. So there's so many people here.
Wow.
Yeah. And John?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been, I think, 7 or 8 days since the earthquake. And so we're 35 miles from the town, Port-au-Prince. Mm-hmm. And we've been going out all day long, every day since day one of the earthquake, picking up all the people off the streets. And I thought by now you would go down all over Port-au-Prince and couldn't find nobody. But they're and we've been bringing them to our clinic, and they've been sewing them up, and people screaming and children crying. It was 24 hours a day, and now we're doing surgeries. We got major doctors in here, but still today they have brought in several more truckloads a day, and they said they'll be coming all through the night, all by tomorrow. But I thought by now all the people be off the street having help, but boy, I tell you, they're not.
And the last time we spoke to you, last time Campbell Brown spoke to you, you were running short on supplies. Have you got everything that you need now, or are you getting more of it? You mentioned that you got some medical supplies.
Yes, we had medical supplies come in, and then we've had some food come in across from the Dominican Republic side. The airport seemed like in Port-au-Prince is bottlenecked up, and the bureaucrats down there, Lord have mercy, can't do nothing down there much. But they've been coming through the border, and so we have food now.
Let me ask you about the children there at the orphanage. We're in the 7th day now, just completing the 7th day of this catastrophe, this ordeal. How are the children holding up? What's the effect been on them?
Well, it's taken days for the children to try to get readjusted. They are still sleeping. They were sleeping way outside, away from the orphanage, on the gravel, on sheets.
Like everybody in Haiti.
Yeah, and then they got a little brave. They decided that they were going to all sleep inside, but right next to the door. And then the first little aftershock came along. They were back out in the yard again. So, they're still not sleeping in the rooms at night. They're afraid that the cement ceilings are going to fall in on them. But, every night they just drag the little sheets down and they sleep by the door. Bless their hearts, and they're just afraid. So we're just letting them work out that by themselves.
Well, that's great. And how are you folks holding up? I'm sure you haven't had a whole lot of sleep in the last 7 days.
We're exhausted. We're exhausted.
We've been going 24/7, and these crazy aftershocks. There's been about 50 of them. I don't know what the TV is saying back in America, but I would say at least 35 of them. You may think I'm exaggerating, but I would say they're earthquake size. This house is shook like it's a piece of paper. That gets on your nerves. I mean, the stress of it.
Bobby and Sherry Burnett from the relief group Love a Child in Haiti doing the good work down there. We're getting new numbers every few minutes in tonight's Down to the Wire Senate race in Massachusetts. Right now, Republican Scott Brown hanging on to a lead, about 5 points at this point. We'll take you right back to Boston for the very latest. Stay with us. Breaking news here on CNN. Wolf Blitzer's got the latest numbers from the Massachusetts special election. What do we got, Wolf?
About 750,000 people's votes have now been counted, John. Take a closer look. Scott Brown, the Republican, holding his lead with 52% to 47% for Martha Coakley. 36% of the precincts, more than a third, have now been counted. 750,000 votes. They're coming in very quickly. I did check with our folks, John. You'll be interested. A lot of these precincts so far are from the western part of Massachusetts, and that's a little bit more rural, maybe a little bit more Republican. So there's still a lot of votes to be counted in Boston and the suburbs. So this isn't over with yet. We're watching closely.
All right, we'll see how things change throughout the evening. John King, by the way, is at the Brown campaign party in Boston, where they've been entertained by the Doug Flutie Band for a while. And John, I guess the question that's on everybody's mind tonight is, should Brown pull off a win tonight, what happens to the health care bill?
It's a fascinating question, and the burden really would be on the President of the United States. Scott Brown said earlier today when he was voting that he would go to Washington, that he's happy to talk to the President about health care and happy to cooperate, but that he doesn't like the spending in the bill and he thinks it would raise taxes. So the question is, will the President say, forget what happened in Massachusetts and try to rally the Democrats, or will the President suddenly get conciliatory, John, and reach out and maybe backpedal a bit and try to make a deal?
How's that Doug Flutie Band, by the way? He's on what, the drums?
You know, he was a great college quarterback. You might remember the Hail Mary against BC, a pretty good pro quarterback. Turns out he's a pretty good drummer, too.
He actually played for my Toronto Argonauts some years ago as well, so across the border.
That's right.
So what would a Brown win portend for the midterm elections? Obviously, the Democrats feel like the Republicans feel like they got a head of steam after the turnovers in New Jersey and Virginia. If they put this one in the win column, what does that do to Democratic fortunes in November?
In a state the president carried by 26 points 14 months ago, where Democrats outnumber Republicans 3-1. If Scott Brown wins tonight, that means independent voters swarmed over to him. It means a lot of Democrats abandoned their president. That would send a serious case of jitters, John, if not panic, across the Democratic Party. Look at where the big races for governor and Senate are. Many of them, if not most of them, are in states where independent voters will make the difference. Right now, those voters seem to be as mad at the Democrats and the president as they were at George W. Bush and the Republicans just back 14 months ago in November 2008.
All right, John King for us tonight at the Brown Party. We'll have more new numbers coming out of the Massachusetts Senate race right after the break. Don't go away. Latest returns now in the Massachusetts special election. Here's Wolf.
We got a significant number, almost 1 million votes, John, have now been counted. Scott Brown, the Republican, holds his lead at 52% to 47%. Almost half of the precincts, 45%, have been counted. As I said, a lot of these from out the western part of Massachusetts, but some are coming in now from the major urban areas around Boston. So it's still a contest. We're wired closely, certainly not ready to project a winner yet. We'll see what happens over the course of the next hour.
And Wolf, we know that you'll keep watching it very closely. Let's go back to Brown Party headquarters where John King is. And John, few people know Massachusetts politics like you do. If Brown pulls off a win tonight, how did it happen?
It happened because, number one, he ran a better campaign. Number two, he did get some late financial help at the end from the Republican Party in Washington. But, John, most of all, he tapped into the same economic discontent and anxiety that Barack Obama tapped into in 2008. And he also went right after independent voters. A lot of Democrats said we have to keep Teddy Kennedy's seat. Scott Brown went across the state saying it's not the Kennedy seat, it's the people's seat. A lot of discontent with the party in power. In 2008, that party was the Republicans. Right now, it's Barack Obama and the Democrats. And these people in this room tonight, John, think Massachusetts is about to send a very big message.
You know, John, there's talk about how much of this was President Obama and anger at his agenda, how much of this was just Martha Coakley running a bad campaign. A prominent Democrat that I spoke to tonight said, hey, take a look at 2 weeks ago. Or 3 weeks ago, Martha Coakley was up by 15 points. So if she was up by 15 points then, the anger couldn't have been about the president's agenda. What do you make of that argument?
If you talk to smart people up here, Democrats and Republicans, they say it's all of the above. They say she didn't run a very good campaign. She went down essentially over the Christmas holidays. That's when the terrorist incident happened. Scott Brown was a very sharp contrast on that issue. The president came up here. The economic news has gotten worse, John. So everybody here says don't just blame the president. Don't just blame Martha Coakley. The Democrats up here call it a perfect storm. But they also say, guess what? The elements of the storm here can be found in many other states across the United States right now. And smart Democrats up here say they hope the president gets the message because they think he needs to make a shift.
All right, John King watching it for us tonight at Brown Party headquarters. He'll be there all night. That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. Larry King Live starts right now.
Tonight, alive after 7 days, victims are still being rescued from the rubble in earthquake-ravaged Haiti. How many more are holding on beneath concrete and collapsed buildings? And then saving Haitian orphans. 53 children made it to the U.S. Smallest victims overcoming obstacles and incredible odds. And then, are the Republicans about to win Ted Kennedy's Senate seat? What would it mean for President Obama and health care reform? We've got up-to-the-minute election results now on Larry King Live. Good evening. First, a quick program note. We'll have 2 editions of Larry King Live tonight. This, the regular one, at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. And then we'll be back live at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific, with a complete program dealing with the incredible election today in Massachusetts. 2 Larry King Lives tonight. And we'll have life and death drama from Haiti in a few minutes. First, let's get right to that pivotal vote in Massachusetts. Wolf Blitzer standing by with the very latest on this special election. Wolf?
A lot of votes, Larry, have already been counted. The stakes are enormous, as you point out. 57% of the precincts have reported. Scott Brown, Larry, the Republican in Massachusetts, with 53% to Martha Coakley, the Democrat, 46%. He's building up almost 100,000 lead right now, 653 to 575,000. So he's doing well. But once again, they still have a lot of votes yet to be counted. I will say this, Larry, they're coming in, the votes in Massachusetts, very quickly. So we're going to get a lot of results over the course of the next hour. At some point, I assume we'll be able to project a winner. We'll do it if we can this hour, or we'll do it and wait.
We'll hang right with you, Wolf. Let's go to John King. He's at Brown headquarters, the Park Plaza in Boston. John's a veteran of Boston politics. Now, how much of these votes are from the urban areas?
Well, that's the great question, Larry, because right now 30% of the precincts in Boston have reported. In Boston, Martha Coakley, the Democrat, is getting 59% of the vote, quite different from her total statewide. So we need to watch, and that's why everybody in this room, the Republican event tonight, they are confident, but they're waiting to see the urban vote in Boston. If Martha Coakley can hold that margin, and if the turnout is high enough, she can make up some ground for the Republican votes in the rural areas and in the suburbs. The question is, are there enough people? Anecdotally today, people were saying the turnout was higher in the suburbs, the Republican-leaning areas, than it was here in the city. But some people in the city tend to vote late after work. So, as Wolf just noted, as we watch all of these votes come in, we will keep a very special eye on Suffolk County, which is the county where Boston is, Larry.
And let's go to Coakley headquarters at the Sheraton Hotel in Boston. Jessica Yellen is standing by. What kind of percentage, what kind of turnout does she need in Boston, the city of Boston, Jessica?
Larry, she needs an exceptionally high turnout. This is where her base voters would be urban voters, African-American voters. But the question is, will it be enough to carry her over the line? And I can tell you by the mood here, very subdued. Folks do not feel terribly optimistic. This is a campaign where Democrats in this state say, they're acknowledging openly, that they simply did not anticipate the degree of voter rage, that there is such an anti-incumbent spirit, the same spirit that worked for Democrats and carried them into office in 06 and 08 is now turning on Democrats, they feel, this year. And they really are downcast, the Democrats in this room, but say it should be a wake-up call across the nation that Democrats need to realize you don't align yourself with your party, don't take anything for granted. You have to stand up and say you're for the people, which is what Scott Brown did so well in this campaign. Still a few hours to go, a few more minutes for vote counting, but not a lot of happy people in this room, Larry.
Nice, Jessica. We'll have much more on the election later in the hour, and, of course, a midnight live show as well. But let's hear about Haiti. Anderson Cooper joins us with an amazing story of survival 1 week to the day since the earthquake struck. What happened, Anderson?
Larry, incredible doesn't even begin to describe it. One woman rescued 4 more people right now being searched for in 2 separate sites near the National Cathedral. The woman who was rescued, her name is Enna Zizi. She's in her 70s. The fact that a woman in her 70s was able to last a week, she says, without food, without water, it is really extraordinary. But the struggle for her life continues, Larry, because getting pulled out of the rubble alive is one thing. Being saved, living, is another thing entirely. And once this woman was pulled out of the rubble, they didn't know where to bring her. They brought her about a block away to a public park where a number of people are living, and medics have now set up sort of a triage unit there, but they didn't have the facilities to care for this woman. She's severely dehydrated. She's in her 70s. She's got crushed bones. If somebody who's been crushed underneath rubble for this long needs immediate medical attention. She needed surgery. We actually went on CNN, just announced that they didn't know what to do with her, where to take her. Some aid groups saw our broadcast. The Coast Guard got involved. I can tell you she has been helicoptered to a hospital. They found a hospital that had a bed. But I mean, literally, she was just going to lay in this park because no one really knew where to take her, and things just aren't organized enough on that level. And researchers are still now combing through the rubble, digging into the rubble deep into this building right next to the National Cathedral, going after 2 people, one of whom, Larry, actually sent a text message last night, they say, saying she was alive, saying to someone she worked with that she was alive. And the searchers weren't even going to go look for her today. That wasn't their assignment. They were just in the neighborhood to set up a sort of a medical unit, a medical area to give basic treatment to people. And some neighbors said, oh, would you go and search over here because we think there's somebody alive? We got a text message. And lo and behold, they sent in a dog. The dog got hits. They sent in another dog. That dog got hits as well. And they've been searching, and they've already pulled out the one. I mean, it's an unbelievable day, Larry.
Amazing. Amazing. And Anderson will be with you at the top of the hour with lots more on this and other things occurring in that incredibly beleaguered nation. The son of the woman Anderson was just speaking about is with us. Maxime Janvier is on the phone from New York. Have you had any contact with your mother yet, Maxime?
No, I have contact with my sister, Betty, in Haiti. And she's very happy, and we're all happy here.
And what does Betty say is the current condition of your mom?
Well, she said she's been airlifted to the boat for more medical attention, and my brother went with her, and they're keeping a good eye on her.
Well, your mom must have a great deal of fortitude.
I'm telling you, she's a tough cookie.
Were you hearing news about her? What did you know she was in a buried situation?
Yes, that's her usual routine every Monday and Tuesday. She goes to church and to that cathedral for service, and then my sister told me that's what she does. That's her pastime.
Are you going to go down and see her?
Definitely.
Well, it's an incredible story, Maxime. Give her the love of everyone at CNN and our best expectations for her well-being.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxime Janvier in New York. Wow. Some Haitian orphans who beat the odds, back with the man who got them out of the country, the governor of Pennsylvania, Ed Rendell. Also, we're keeping tabs on that Senate race. Keep you updated throughout the hour. We're back. Here's the latest in Massachusetts. Scott Brown has a 7 percentage point lead, 53% over Martha Coakley, 46%. This is for the seat vacated by the death of Senator Kennedy. We'll keep you posted, and again, we'll have a live show later at midnight. Ivan Watson, he's done yeoman-like work in Port-au-Prince. What's the latest from your vantage point right now, Ivan?
A sad moment here, Larry. I'm going to ask Dave to pan the camera right over here. The Mexican rescue team here moments ago brought out the body of a priest, and they conducted a prayer here over the body. The priest issued the non-donation of a rosary on the body of the priest. Just pulled out the ruins of a building next to Port-au-Prince International.
I want to apologize. That's a poor connection with Ivan Watson. We'll try to reconnect with him. But obviously he's reporting on the bringing out of a lady who did not make it from the rubble in Haiti. Let's go to Washington. Governor Ed Rendell, Democrat of Pennsylvania, has just come back from Haiti, accompanying 53 children from the Bresma Orphanage in Port-au-Prince. How did this come about, Ed?
Well, Larry, the Bresma Orphanage was run by 2 young women from Pittsburgh, 2 sisters, not nuns, but 2 blood sisters. And when the earthquake happened, they had to keep the kids outside with no sanitation, very little food and water. They called home. They were connected to our wonderful University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. They tried to get the ability to take them out. They couldn't do it. They called me. I couldn't get anywhere. And then we saw the Haitian ambassador, Ray Joseph, being interviewed on CNN. So I called into the station and said, can you get a message from me to Ambassador Joseph. They did. The ambassador called me. He started the ball rolling. And then we got great cooperation from the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration, the State Department. The military was terrific. We got on a plane yesterday morning, Monday morning at around 11:30 from Pittsburgh. We reached the Port-au-Prince at about 6 o'clock. We were there for the next 6.5 hours fighting to get all of these 54 kids out of the country. There was no dispute about the children who already had been approved for adoption in the U.S. or Canada, but for the 7 or 8 others, there was a big dispute about whether they could go or not. And the 2 sisters put their heels down and said, we either all go or nobody goes. And we were trying to persuade them to let us take 90% of them out to safety. The kids had health challenges, etc. Well, finally, the National Security Council stepped in, and we literally got clearance from the White House. All 54 kids were granted visas. They all arrived at the airport. But our plane had been sent away because you can only keep a plane on the tarmac there for a limited amount of time because, you know, all of the planes are coming in and they've got to clear the runway space. But the military got us a C-17, and all of a sudden this C-17 had a cargo of 53 young Haitians ranging from 6 months to 10 years.
What a story.
25 medical personnel. But the real kicker to the story was the 54th child we couldn't find after we locked the door on the plane. So one of the sisters got off determined to find him. They found her. It was a little girl on the bus. She had fallen asleep and people hadn't found her. The little girl's name was Emma. Emma and the other sister just arrived in Miami a few minutes ago. So all 54 are safe on American soil. And we hope this will be a breakthrough so that all of a sudden a lot more orphans who don't have adoptive homes yet can be sent to the United States.
Yeah, we're in fact going to be talking about that with 2 adoptive parents in just a minute. Where are the kids now, Ed?
The kids now are in Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, one of the great children's hospitals of the country, and they're getting treated. No serious health challenges, Larry, but fevers, some infections, a tremendous amount of dehydration. But the kids are all going to be fine, and the 47 who have their adoptive families, those families are being notified. The other 7 are going to be put up between Catholic Charities and the Allegheny County Welfare Department are going to put them up for normal adoption.
You've had a long, illustrious career in politics, mayor, governor. This may be the best thing you've done.
Well, it was the most fun. When I looked, I didn't have a seat on the C-17 because we didn't have enough seats. I was sitting on some boxes, and I looked down, and you know the C-17s are huge. You can fit 4 or 5 tanks in them. And when I saw these little kids strapped in against the wall of the C-17, and they were never been on a plane before, Larry. They were laughing. They weren't scared by the loud noises. These are great kids, and I'll tell you, it was a great feeling for all of us involved. I haven't slept since Sunday, and let me tell you, I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
We'll check back in with Ivan Watson in a little while. We'll talk about adoptive parents when we come back. I want to thank all of you for helping the people of Haiti last night during and after our special Larry King Live, Haiti, How You Can Help. The American Red Cross and U.S. Fund for UNICEF received pledges totaling $8,944,956. It's just the start, but what a great one, and we owe it all to you. Want to remind you that the Michael Jackson Opus is up for auction on our website. We're taking bids. People of Haiti are going to benefit. So go to CNN.com/Larry King. Keep the good work coming. Let's check in with Wolf Blitzer for the latest on Massachusetts. Wolf?
You did a great job last night. Let me thank you because you made us all really proud. Let's take a look. Now almost 70% of the precincts have reported in Massachusetts. This for Ted Kennedy's Senate seat. The Republican Scott Brown maintaining a significant lead, 53% to 46%. He's got a lead of about 100,000 votes, Larry, so far. There's still plenty of precincts left out there, but it's becoming increasingly more and more difficult to see a way that she can narrow that 100,000 gap right now. But we'll wait. We'll count the votes together with everyone else and see what happens. But this Republican, he's getting ready, it looks like, for a huge upset, Larry.
I'm not an expert, but it's going to take something in that last 30%. Back we go to Port-au-Prince and Ivan Watson. We had a bad signal earlier, Ivan. What were you telling us about that body coming out?
This was a priest that was pulled out, and it was a very touching moment, Larry, where the Mexican rescue team, which helped save a woman earlier today at this very location, they knelt and prayed, and along with the participation of a Catholic nun, over the body of this priest with the rosary placed on the priest's body. It was a very touching moment here. Now, the rescue that's been underway behind me, the operation that's been underway, the teams here have been breaking down some of their equipment because they have not had any contact, any signs of life for about 3 hours now. They're doing one last check after bringing the dogs through several times. They're using some listening equipment right now, but it does look like the teams here are getting ready to pack up. We had one miracle today, and we may not have another. Larry?
Ivan, is it all beginning to wear on you?
It's been a long week, I think, for everybody. For the rescue workers here, these folks are camping out. They're working very long days in very difficult conditions. The Haitians themselves, Larry, can you believe that a woman could survive 7 days in the condition she was in, buried there? The Mexican workers tell me when they got to her, she was singing, laying on her back. Really remarkable considering she was in her 70s, but it is wearing on me and everybody. I was with some family members who were missing, waiting outside the ruins of a supermarket, and they're spending day and night just waiting there, hoping somebody might dig out their loved ones. It's very difficult.
Thanks, Ivan. We'll take a break and come back, and then we'll meet that prospective adoptive parents of a little boy in Haiti. More updates coming on Massachusetts. And a midnight live show, 9 Eastern, second edition of Larry King Live tonight. Don't go away. We'll be checking in with those adoptive parents. We're trying to clear a signal through in the next segment. Right now, let's go to Port-au-Prince. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's chief medical correspondent, is standing by. It's a week after the quake. What's the situation with the medical care? Is it better?
It is better, Larry, for sure, but that's a little bit of a relative term. I mean, it's nowhere near where it should be, or I think where a lot of people expected it to be by this point. The problem is become pretty simple and defined itself. We're getting a lot more personnel, as far as we can see, on the ground, in the various hospitals, in these clinics that we've been talking about. The problem, more than anything else, seems to be lack of equipment, Larry. The types of injuries that you see after an earthquake, these crush injuries, people need operations, they need various procedures, they need pain medications for just suffering. And still, remarkably, a week later, Larry, not all of that has arrived here, or at least at the places that need it most.
Do we have an answer as to why?
It really seems to be a fundamental lack of coordination, number one. Supplies are getting to the airport, but they're not getting into places that need it. It also seems to be this question, do we put more of our resources on security and trying to secure the areas, or do we use it for medical aid, humanitarian aid? And it seems like
Sanjay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to come right. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to come right back to you. Let's check in with Wolf Blitzer. We've got a result in Massachusetts. Wolf,
we've got the breaking news. CNN now projects, Larry, that Scott Brown will become the next United States senator from the state of Massachusetts, defeating the Democrat Martha Coakley. Take a look at this. 75% of the precincts have now reported, 53% for Scott Brown, 46% for Martha Coakley. He is maintaining more than 100,000 advantage, 100,000 vote advantage. We are also told by our chief national correspondent, John King, that Martha Coakley has actually telephoned Scott Brown to concede, to acknowledge she has not won this race. So there will be a Republican senator filling the seat of the late Senator Ted Kennedy from the state of Massachusetts. Larry, this is a big news because at stake right now, health care reform and a lot of other stuff. The Democrats will no longer have that 60-seat supermajority that can beat a filibuster if the Republicans want a filibuster. So this is very significant for the president and Democrats on so many issues.
John King is at Brown headquarters. The last Republican from Massachusetts, John, you know it well, I guess, was Senator Ed Brooke, the black liberal Republican. Was it not in what is that, 78? 68, maybe.
He was a moderate. You're exactly right, Larry. Ed Brooke was a moderate Republican from Western Massachusetts. He served 2 terms. He left the United States Senate in 1979, and not since then has Massachusetts sent a Republican to the Senate. But tonight, Massachusetts has not only decided to send a Republican to the Senate, Larry, Massachusetts is sending a very blunt message to President Obama and the National Democratic Party. Scott Brown campaigned against the Obama health care plan, against the Obama stimulus plan, against what he calls the spending and the taxing in Washington, D.C. And voters in a state that Obama carried by 26 points have now, by a significant margin, decided to send a Republican, Scott Brown, to Washington. And I want to echo the point Wolf just made. I'm told by 2 Republican sources high up in the Brown campaign that Martha Coakley, the Democratic candidate, called a short time ago to say she was conceding the race. I'm told she congratulated Scott Brown on the campaign and wished him well in the very consequential days he has ahead, Larry, as he goes to Washington now to take the seat that Edward M. Kennedy, the liberal icon, held for 46 years.
One other thing, John, and we'll discuss it later and certainly at length in our midnight show, is he can't be sworn in according to Massachusetts law till the 29th. Can the Democrats in the House and Senate try to do something before then on health?
The answer to can they is yes. The answer to will they is don't be so sure. The White House has sent signals it would like to try to move fast, but many Democrats are saying that that would be dangerous if you disrespect the will of the people of Massachusetts. This election is being fueled by independent voters, Larry. Independent voters are very powerful in many of the other key states and key races this year. Many Democrats are afraid that if they act quickly in that interim period, they will cause a lot more trouble for themselves in the long term than any benefit they would get in the short term.
Thanks, John. John, you stay with us. Wolf, you stay with us. Jessica Yellen will be coming aboard. Gloria Borger as well. And then we'll have our pundits join us. Ari Fleischer, David Gergen, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend will be here as we stay on the Massachusetts story for the rest of this hour and the midnight hour. Again, we'll be back at midnight, 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Of course, Haiti coverage will continue at length again throughout the night and again tomorrow, but the Massachusetts story reigns supreme right now. We'll be right back. In a couple of minutes, I'll be calling on Ari Fleischer, David Gergen, and Kathleen Kennedy Townsend to analyze all of this. But let's get our final reports in, at least in this hour, from our reporters on the scene. First, Wolf Blitzer, quick result recap, Wolf. What happened?
CNN has projected that the winner in the Massachusetts Senate race is the Republican, Scott Brown. Right now, 84% of the precincts are in, 52% to 47%, more than 100,000 vote margin, 963,000 to 859,000. Scott Brown will succeed the late Senator Ted Kennedy as the next U.S. Senator from the state of Massachusetts. There was an interim senator, Paul Kirk, the former chairman of the Democratic Party. He will now step down. And within the next few days, we don't know how many days, Scott Brown will be sworn in as the United States Senator from Massachusetts. This is a big deal because it now brings the Democratic supermajority down to 59 instead of 60. You need 60 votes to really get anything important accomplished in the Senate, Larry, and the Democrats are not going to have 60 votes.
Thanks, Wolf Blitzer. On the scene, as always, Wolf Blitzer anchoring CNN's Situation Room and covering this historic election tonight. Jessica Yellen is at the Coakley headquarters at the Sheraton Hotel. This was not unexpected there, was it, Jessica?
No, Larry, folks here are very, very disappointed but not surprised. And their one message is to the national Democrats. They say they hope nationally Democrats learn a lesson from this when their candidate did not tap into voter rage, did not actually articulate a populist message. She was crushed by a tidal wave of anti-incumbent fervor, and they say it is time for Democrats to get a wake-up call and realize that they have to run on the economy and in touch with the average worker. And that's what Scott Brown did so well in this election. I'll also add quickly, Larry, that the circular firing squad has begun, with national Republicans accusing Coakley of running a terrible campaign, and the Coakley campaign fighting back and saying they created a bad national mood. This is a story we're going to see unfold in the days to come. Angry Democrats, Larry.
Thanks, Jessica. And John King, final word for you, and we'll be checking with you much later. But Mrs. Coakley, was not the strongest of candidates, was she?
She was not the strongest of candidates, Larry. No, you're exactly right, but she also was running in not the strongest Democratic environment, and that says a lot when you're talking about Massachusetts, where Obama won by 26 points. This victory is fueled by discontent among independents, and Democrats in other key races across the country are going to look at these results, and you already see a lot of statements tonight from Democrats saying, we can't sugarcoat this, we better learn a lesson. How will that affect health care? How will that affect the president's budget, spending, tax policy? Some big dramas to play out in Washington because of what happened tonight in Massachusetts.
Thanks, John King. There were our reporters, King, Yellen, and Blitzer. And now let's go to our analysts. And they'll be with us till the top of the hour. Ari Fleischer served as White House press secretary for President George W. Bush. He's in Stamford, Connecticut. David Gergen is CNN's senior political analyst. He was an advisor to Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton. And in Washington as well, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, the former Democratic lieutenant governor of Maryland, the eldest daughter of the late Senator Robert Kennedy. All right, Ari Fleischer, what do you make of this?
It's staggering. It is absolutely unheard of for a Republican to win statewide for a federal office in Massachusetts anymore. 30 years is the last time you had a Republican senator. There are 10 congressmen from Massachusetts. Every single one is a Democrat, and they've all been Democrats for more than a decade. You know, Larry, I really cannot see health care reform passing anymore in the United States Congress. I think if the Democrats after this try to get it through, particularly in the House, it will fail. I think there's going to be the next step. I think there's going to be a real grassroots rebellion in the House of Representatives. They're in a very dicey spot right now.
Right. Kathleen, all the polls say that Obama remains extraordinarily popular in Massachusetts. People liking Obama voted against the Democratic candidate. How do you explain that?
I think the best is to remember Tip O'Neill, who said that all politics is local. And they like politicians who work hard for them, who seem to know that this is an important election, who fight for it. And I think the sad thing is we didn't see Martha Coakley doing that. And I'm disappointed, but I think it tells everybody that the voters want you to say, I want your vote. I'm going to be out in the cold. I'm going to be out in the heat. I'm going to be up early and down, up late to be with you and to fight for you, because people are angry, and they're angry with reason. And I'm disappointed at what happened, but I think it is a big wake-up call for Democrats to say, Democratic politicians, you pay attention to what's going on the ground. I really don't think it's about health care, because Massachusetts has health care, and 80% of the people in Massachusetts like their health care plan or like what's gone on. So I think I disagree with Ari Fleischer about that.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that with all of you, but Mr. Gergen, who doesn't have a dog in this hunt, as they say, what's your read?
Larry, this will be the vote heard around the world. It's going to have an enormous impact here in Washington. I think it'll have ripple effects even all the way to American foreign policy. There was a strong difference between the candidates. He was a very good candidate. I think he had a certain kind of charm to him, masculinity about him. He had an emotional connection. She did not. And she simply did not connect. I think Kathleen was absolutely right about that. But if the Democrats leave it there, at that interpretation, they're kidding themselves. This was also a message to Washington that people in Massachusetts, the bluest of blue states, do not like the direction that Washington is taking. Larry, I happen to moderate the debate that occurred 1 week ago, and I can tell you there is a lot of anger in Massachusetts about the direction things are taking, and people wanted to take it out on Martha Coakley.
Well, let me get a break and come back. All three will remain with us on this Election Night Now edition of Larry King Live. Don't go away. Ari Fleischer, David Gergen, and Kathleen Kennedy Townsend remain. We're joined by Gloria Borges, CNN senior political analyst. She's also in Washington. All right, what's your 2 cents?
I'm going to disagree with Kathleen, and I'm going to say at my own personal risk here, and I'm going to say that this was a national election. Yes, there was a weak candidate who ran a weak campaign, but Scott Brown campaigned by saying he wanted to be the vote to kill health care reform in the United States Senate, and he won. And that is a big message to this administration that they didn't communicate about their bill well enough. Maybe their bill was too large at a time that people don't like big government. And, when trust in government, Larry, is at an all-time low in this country, it's hard to tell people to swallow more big government. So they were sending a message, and it was also about independent voters. Yes, Massachusetts is a blue state, but 51% of the voters in Massachusetts identify themselves as independents, and the Democrats need to learn to talk to independent voters.
Dana Bash up there on Capitol Hill. Ari Fleischer says the health care is dead, but what about the purported story that what the House will do will pass the Senate version in that conference, and then the Senate, of course, will come back. They don't need 60 votes. They need 51. They pass their own bill, and they get a health bill before Mr. Brown is sworn in, or even if he is sworn in.
Larry, that has been the talk over the past 24, 48 hours or more of the best of a lot of really bad possibilities. But I have spent the past several hours talking to a lot of House Democratic members who would have to swallow that pill and vote for it. And I have talked to so many who said, no way. Some I talked to, I couldn't even get my question out, Larry. They knew exactly what I was going to ask, and the answer was no. No, we will not vote for the Senate bill. Why? Because these are just Democrats we're talking about, but there are differences, a lot of differences between the two bills, and many in the House feel that the Senate bill, just for example, doesn't go far enough in making health care affordable for middle class and working class Americans. So that is looking very unlikely. Just in the anecdotal conversations I've had this evening with a lot of House Democrats, but to the point of that Gloria was making about this being a national message. Certainly, again, in those conversations this evening with House Democrats, they are seeing it as a national message. They say maybe Martha Coakley, the Democrat, wasn't the best candidate in the world, just the opposite. But they say if we want to survive and do well in the next 10 months, we cannot ignore the election results in Massachusetts.
Ari Fleischer, one can be confused. Massachusetts has a very strong health care plan, which I think everyone in Massachusetts is covered. The president is popular. Why are they against this?
Well, the president is somewhat popular there. Even in Massachusetts, he's lost a lot of the huge shine that he began the year with. And I think, let me pass on an insight, something that I heard today from Washington. I was talking with some top campaign officials at the National Republican Senatorial Committee who were involved in this. They told me they first started to see this thing, the needle moving, in December, just before Christmas, when Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid cut those big deals to give $100 million payoffs to a couple of different senators for projects in their state. Senator Ben Nelson of Nebraska involving Medicaid, Senator Landrieu in Louisiana for some parochial issues of her concerns. That's when they started to see the polling shifting in Massachusetts. It really angered independent voters. I think it's much bigger than just health care reform, Larry. It's the way Washington is doing business. And that's what Barack Obama came to Washington to change, and he's losing independents. He lost them in Virginia, he lost them in New Jersey, and he just lost them amazingly in Massachusetts, because the way he's governing and the Democrats in Washington are governing is so out of sync with what independents were hoping for when they elected Barack Obama. That, I'm told, is what began the tipping point in Massachusetts, in addition to the local issues where she was a bad candidate. But bad candidates who are Democrats can still easily win in Massachusetts. This is the national mood that has swamped the Democrat Party there, and it risks swamping them in many other places. One final point. I'm also told of the 6 states where Democrats have incumbents up for re-election this year, and 6 close states, Republicans are up in Nevada, Arkansas, Colorado, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and North Dakota in all the Republican polling in those states. This has huge national implications.
We'll get the comments of the others when we come back. Don't go away. Before we get back to our analysts, we have a quick comment in from John King. John?
Well, Larry, just wanted to report a Republican source here in the building and another Brown aide telling our producer, Peter Hamby, one source to Peter, one source to me, that the President of the United States, Barack Obama, who has so much at stake in this vote tonight, has placed a phone call to congratulate the victor, Republican State Senator Scott Brown, who will soon be Republican United States Senator Scott Brown. We're trying to get details of that phone call. Of course, Scott Brown ran against the Obama health care plan, ran against the Obama stimulus plan, ran against the president's approach to the economy, said he was spending too much and not creating enough jobs fast enough. But tonight, Larry, the President of the United States, Democrat Barack Obama, who carried this state by 26 points 14 months ago, called the Republican victor, said congratulations, told him he was looking forward to working with him in Washington. We'll try to get more details of that call, Larry. Quite a consequential night in Massachusetts, as reflected by a Democratic president calling a Republican winner in the seat held for nearly 50 years by Ted Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, he ran, one of the principal platforms that Obama ran on was health care. And he got a health care through, albeit not as strong as he wanted. So what is the big disappointment in Massachusetts? What did he disappoint them with?
Well, I think we've got to remember that the healthcare industry has spent over $100 million against healthcare reform. And so when people say healthcare reform, they've been confused. It's been, what is this? What is that? It's big government. But when you ask them, do you want to have, you get rid of pre-existing conditions? Do you want to have portability? Do you want to carry your health care when you lose your job? They like it. And what we saw in Massachusetts is during the time when they were looking at the health care bill and during the negotiations, Massachusetts didn't like health care. But when it gets passed, which it is now, 80% of people from Massachusetts like it. So I think the healthcare industry has done a really good job, and Scott Brown has been able to jump on that to say big government is bad, healthcare is bad. And I think, so that's the issue on healthcare. I think what else is going on is that people in Massachusetts and really across the nation are angry, and they're taking out their anger on the Democrats. And I think the Democrats have got to say, we're angry too. We have got to provide jobs for people. We've got to take on the big banks who have gotten so much help over the last year. And we've got to be seen as helping the people rather than just sitting in Washington negotiating legislation, which doesn't really actually look like it's helping people.
David, but the puzzling part is Massachusetts has those things. Is it that they don't want the rest of the country to have them, or what?
No, Larry, and it's pretty popular in Massachusetts. The state reforms have been pretty popular, even though the premiums have gone way up. Larry, Scott Brown was a very, very clever candidate in many ways. He was able to turn these arguments on her, and he did it on health care. He essentially argued two things. One, to go to Ari Fleischer's point, which I think was right on target, that Scott Brown began to take off in December when those deals were cut in Washington. They were usually done in the back room. They were brought into the front parlor. People saw that kind of stuff. They didn't like it, and it really helped Scott Brown say, I want to change Washington. There's too much business as usual. The second thing was he was able to argue was the cost of health care. He added that in with the cost of a lot of other programs and said, basically, Martha Coakley wants to spend over $2 trillion.
They're telling, hold it, I'll come back to you. They're telling me to cut in. We'll go to break and come right back.
About tradition, about having strong values, about always working hard.
As we come back, we're expecting the Attorney General of Massachusetts, that is not her, to address the crowd shortly. So let's go back to David Gergen for his analysis as I interrupted him. And as soon as the Attorney General of Massachusetts gets up to speak, we'll go right to her. David?
Well, Larry goes back to this point about who Scott Brown became. He presented himself as a populist in a pickup truck. And a lot of people responded to that, especially guys. She was a person who said she didn't have any idea who Curt Schilling was. You know, and in Red Sox Nation, if you don't know who Curt Schilling is, you don't connect to the voters. So there was that. But he was also good at sort of marshaling all this anger and discontent about the ways of Washington, the deal cutting, there were increases in spending, the growth of government that hasn't shown up in terms of new jobs in Massachusetts. And channeling that into his candidacy, and he did a good job with it. And I think that's the message that is being sent to Washington. And we're hearing from Dana Bash tonight that the moderate Democrats are responding. They're getting the message. The question I have in my mind tonight, the message has been sent. Has the White House received it? And what do they think of it? I'm very curious about that in the days ahead.
Dana, do you think they have? Is Dana Bash still with us? Apparently not. So I think we now have the Attorney General coming up to the microphone. This will be her concession speech. She's taken a hard hit tonight in all quarters, Democratic and Republican. Here is the Attorney General of Massachusetts, the defeated candidate tonight.
I don't know. Somebody told me there was a crowd out here. Thank you. Thank you. I want you to know that I just got off the phone with Scott Brown. I've offered him my congratulations and my best wishes on his victory tonight. And I wish to him and Gail and to his 2 daughters, and I told him, Mr. Brown, you've got 2 lovely daughters, which he does. And he also extended his good wishes to me. And so I wish we were here with other and better news tonight, but we are not. And I want to take this moment, first of all, for all of you in this room and those of you who are probably still out working. You poured your hearts and souls into this campaign, and there are thousands of you, literally. We had thousands of people out on the street since September, and I want to say an incredibly sincere thank you for everything that you did, obviously not just for me, but for the campaign and what we stood for in this campaign. And so let's give yourselves a huge round of applause for what you've done. Thank you. Thank you. I will not forget the fierce determination with which we approach this, not just again about this campaign, about the things we believed in and we still believe in and we will still fight for and on after tonight. And I know you will join me in that. We never lost our focus or our determination, and you never demonstrated an ounce of discouragement or complacency as far as I'm concerned in this campaign. I know how hard we worked, and you own everything about this campaign. You were there every step of the way as we went forward in the primary and through tonight and focused on the issues that I believe everybody in Massachusetts does care about and everybody in this country should be focused on as we go forward. I want to say a very sincere and loving thank you to my husband, Tom. Thank you. I had him out on the campaign trail for the last couple days, and I can tell you there are at least 2 dogs who are very happy about tonight's results because we're going to be back with them. I have to thank my family, many of whom are here behind me tonight. My sisters, Anne and Jane and Mary, are all here. My nephews and nieces and grandnieces. Terrific staff on our campaign. If you worked with our staff, with Kevin and Dennis and ML and everybody else who gave sweat, blood, and tears and all of their time to this campaign, you know how much heart and soul we put into it. And it was my honor to be working with them and with you during this campaign. You've in some ways become an extended family for me. As I tell my folks in the AG's office, my extended dysfunctional family, but that's okay. I will never forget the passion and the energy and the soul that we brought to this, and that includes the friendship of everybody who's worked with us. Of course, I know you'll join me in thanking President Obama, who took this little trip to see us here on Sunday. He actually just called me and before I came on stage to say that we can't win them all, and he knows that better than any, as he told me, but he appreciates what I did and what you did, and he said to extend his heartfelt thanks to everybody who'd worked on the campaign. And as I know from losing a campaign several years ago, writing a little piece about it for the Herald, that I feel very strongly about. If you do not run, you cannot win. And you don't always win all of the time, but you put in your best efforts because sometimes it's more important to travel hopefully than to arrive. And in some ways, and we will continue to travel, hopefully, I know that. I know that many of you had the great pleasure of seeing President Clinton as he was out on the campaign trail. I want to thank him. And particularly, I need to send my thanks, and I know yours, to Vicki Kennedy, who campaigned with me all weekend. To Vicki, who was the source of, as she always was, her dignity and grace and her warmth and good humor. And on one occasion, when she gave me a good tip, she said, "I'm channeling my inner Ted," and was incredibly great along the campaign trail. So I have to thank her, and I know you join me in that tonight, as well as the entire Kennedy family for their support and their love in this endeavor. Okay, so this is the deal. Although our campaign ends tonight, we know that our mission continues and our work goes on. I am heartbroken at the result, and I know that you are also, but I know that we will get up together tomorrow and continue this fight, even with this result tonight, because there will be plenty of Wednesday morning quarterbacking about what happened and what went right, what went wrong. And I know that everyone, including me, I am brutally honest on my own performances. We will be honest about the assessment of this race. And although I am very disappointed, I always respect the voters' choice, and that's what I told to Scott Brown tonight. And again, we wish him luck in his public service. Anyone who's been out on the campaign trail, particularly in this race, has seen the anger of folks who are frustrated, concerned. They are angry about health care issues, and they're angry about our two wars, our inability to properly care for those who return home after fighting. I had hoped in the best interests of our state and the country to go to Washington to address these issues. I hope that as a nation and as a Commonwealth, we can do better in the future. You know that as your Attorney General, I will continue to fight and address them here with everybody in Massachusetts who cares about these issues. Thank you.
That's the speech by the Attorney General Coakley conceding the election tonight to Scott Brown in Massachusetts, a historic election. This has been a early edition of Larry King Live. We will be back at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific. We'll do some Wednesday morning quarterbacking, as the Attorney General said, with our pundits and analysis, all coming at midnight, 9 Pacific. Right now, we turn it over to Anderson Cooper. More analysis and more coverage in Haiti and AC 360. Anderson?
Larry, thanks very much. A lot of political analysis ahead, but I want to give you a quick update of what is happening here in Port-au-Prince a week since the quake. 7 days. Remarkable story tonight, underscoring both the good and the bad, the hope and the heartache. A woman was pulled from the rubble alive. It was a struggle to find her, and it was a struggle to find her adequate medical care after she survived. Both stories on that tonight. Really captures the day. Also, more food and water is getting to people who need it. Far from enough. Distribution remains slow, remains a problem. And the airport flights still being turned away. But many more landing than happened yesterday or the day before. We have 2 additional airfields being reopened shortly. Still, flights from that group, Doctors Without Borders, are being turned away. We're trying to figure out who's responsible for that. We're going to show you the impact on that. People are dying. We're keeping them honest. Also, additional American forces on the ground, some landing at the presidential palace. The UN Security Council today approving 3,500 more troops and police officers to keep the peace. The death toll climbing 72,000 plus. According to the Haitian government, that's the number already buried. The government says many, many more are still unaccounted for. We are covering all of it and more in the next 2 hours. But we want to bring you back to the major political story at home. The new senator from Massachusetts, the new Republican senator in Ted Kennedy's old seat. Big implications for the White House, for health care reform, and the rest of President Obama's agenda. We turn for that to Wolf Blitzer, John King, Jessica Yellen are on the Republican and Democratic candidates. Dana Bash is on Capitol Hill tonight on what the Democrats will do now about health care. And Wolf Blitzer's in Washington with our political panel. David Gergen, Paul Begala, Alex Castellanos, Joe Johns, Gloria Borger, the whole team. Wolf, take it away.
Anderson, thanks very much. A huge political story here in the United States right now. Let's show you the results of this election as we have them right now. Almost 100% of the precincts counted, 96%. Scott Brown, the state senator, the Republican, with 52%. Martha Coakley, the state attorney general, 47%. More than 100,000 vote margin right there. A significant win for Scott Brown. Let's go to John King. He's over at Scott Brown's headquarters, where there are a lot of happy people right now. Set the scene for us, John. I assume we're getting ready to hear from the winner of this race.
We are waiting to hear from Scott Brown, as State Senator Wolf will soon become a United States Senator, a Republican United States Senator for Massachusetts for the first time in 30 years. And Scott Brown will take a seat held by the liberal Ted Kennedy for nearly 50 years. That in itself a big message from the people of Massachusetts tonight, not only to their own leadership here, but to the President of the United States and to the National Democratic Party. Scott Brown, in a state that Barack Obama won 14 months ago by 26 points. Scott Brown ran against the Obama health care plan, against the Obama stimulus plan, against the president's approach to the economy, saying Washington was still partisan, the president was spending too much money, not doing enough to create jobs. And in Democratic Massachusetts, Scott Brown tonight wins a convincing victory, Wolf. We are told the President of the United States called Mr. Brown, congratulated him, said he looked forward to working with him. Senator Brown, in turn, cracked a joke. He's an athlete. He said he wanted to take his daughter, who's a very good basketball player, and play a little 2-on-2 with the President of the United States. Key from Senator Brown tonight will be his message on health care, on the economy, on cooperation, because he will be the 41st Republican in the United States Senate. And with those 41 votes, the Republicans now have so much more influence and so much more leverage over the Obama agenda. And Wolf, just considered it was 1 year ago today we were preparing for the inauguration of Barack Obama. The Democrats had such a wind at their back. What a different story and a different message sent tonight by the people of Massachusetts.
A lot of people, John, are going to take credit for this, the Republican establishment, the Republican Party, but also the Tea Party, the Tea Party guys. They're going to take credit for this as well. Who deserves the most credit?
Well, on the Republican side, everyone would say the candidate, Scott Brown, deserves the most credit for keeping a tight, consistent message that Washington was still broken, that Obama hadn't delivered on his promises, that the Democrats were spending too much, and that there was an arrogance in Washington and here in Massachusetts that this was Ted Kennedy's seat, not the people's seat, as Scott Brown liked to say. So he gets most of the credit. But to your point about the Tea Party and the Republicans, there's no question the intensity gap that so benefited Obama and the Democrats just 14 months ago has now swung the other way. The key point here, Wolf, many people across the country might think Massachusetts is this wildly liberal state. It is left of many states, but unenrolled independent voters make up a majority here in Massachusetts. Yes, Democrats outnumber independents 3-1, but unenrolled independents make up the majority. That is what has Democrats worried. Not only have some Democrats left the president to vote for this Republican candidate for Senate, but independents have swept to this Republican candidate. That has other Democrats across the country very worried.
All right, we'll stand by to hear from the winner of this race, Scott Brown. Let's go to Martha Coakley's headquarters. She just spoke a little while ago. Jessica Yellen is on the scene for us. Jessica, she got a call from the President of the United States saying, too bad.
The president told her you can't win them all. That's what she told us. And you could see the Martha Coakley there that voters saw, a woman who spent 20 years in public service, but a very subdued, restrained woman who could not have prepared for what she confronted. And certainly Democrats in this state say she was not prepared for a tidal wave of voter rage that the Democrats just did not foresee here. Martha Coakley won a primary and went on vacation. She assumed, as many of her campaign aides did, Democrats here say that they had an easy walk to the finish line, and all that time they were not on air with ads. I'm told they weren't even polling, so they didn't do polls through most of December, while Scott Brown, the Republican, was out in his pickup truck shaking hands, knocking on doors, sending that message that John King just outlined, that he's here for the people, standing up against the big forces that are depriving them of jobs and a good lifestyle. Martha Coakley didn't know it had hit until just 2 weeks ago. They saw the first polls showing that Scott Brown was surging, and as you can see, by then it was already too late. The White House, Wolf, and the Democrats in Washington are insistent that this is in no way a repudiation of President Obama or a reflection of his policies, and there's a lot of finger pointing saying that Coakley did not run a good campaign. But I just moments ago spoke to her pollster, Celinda Lake, who's been taking a lot of flack from Washington Democrats, saying that she didn't run this right. And here's what she said. There is a wave. This is Celinda Lake here. There is a wave. The first shore was New Jersey and Virginia, where the Democratic governors lost. The second was Massachusetts. It's coming to the island now, and Democrats better be ready. Wolf.
Jessica Yellen over at Martha Coakley's headquarters. Up next, we're going to check in with our own Dana Bash on Capitol Hill, where the Democrats are now facing a very tough set of decisions on health care reform. And Anderson Cooper is standing by in Haiti with everything that's going on there right now. Stay with us.
Wolf, we're going to have a lot more from Haiti coming up. An incredible rescue over the last couple hours in the rubble of the National Cathedral. A woman alive 7 days in the rubble. She's in her 70s. Her name is Enna Zizi. We're going to show you the rescue that we were there for it. Her son lives in the United States. She's now getting medical attention. We're going to have a lot more from Port-au-Prince. All our correspondents on the ground. But let's go back to Wolf Blitzer right now in Washington. Wolf?
It's been another amazing, amazing day in Haiti. We'll get back to you shortly, Anderson. Thank you. A major upset, though, here in the United States. Republican Scott Brown has won the Senate race held by Democrat Ted Kennedy. Brown's opponent, the Massachusetts Attorney General Martha Coakley, conceded defeat tonight. Scott Brown campaigned on a promise to oppose President Obama's health care plan. It's hard to overstate how much the Democrats had riding on this race. Let's go to our senior congressional correspondent, Dana Bash. She's up on Capitol Hill for us. What happens to health care reform now, Dana?
That is the big question, and it is completely unanswerable at this point. All day long, when Democrats knew that this was the likely outcome, a bad outcome from their perspective in Massachusetts, everybody's been talking about it. What do we do? What do we do if we can't, if we don't have that 60-vote filibuster-proof majority in the Senate? And one of the discussions that has been going on, Wolf, has been, well, maybe the House can just pass the Senate bill and then send it to the president. But I got to tell you, talking to many rank and file members of the House, some of the most liberal and some of the most conservative, that seems very unlikely, because that is a very unpopular bill in terms of some of the key provisions and differences between Democrats in the two chambers. But on another level, beyond this health care bill, and including this health care bill, you have some Democrats who are saying, look, we have to change our ways. We have to do things differently. And one of those Democrats is Anthony Weiner of New York. Again, one of the most liberal members of Congress, very much a proponent of health care. He started out by talking to us and chastising House Democratic leaders who were in a meeting earlier this evening talking about House and Senate negotiations, as if perhaps the political tsunami wasn't coming from Massachusetts. Take a listen.
They're talking as if like what our deal is, what our negotiations are at the White House. Yeah, and then the last line is pigs fly out of my ass or something like that. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's just we've got to recognize we have an entirely different scenario. When you have large numbers of citizens in the United States of America who believe this is going in the wrong direction, there's a limit to which you can keep saying that, okay, they just don't get it. If we just pass a bill, they'll get it. I don't know. I mean, I think that we should maybe internalize that we're not doing things entirely correctly.
Again, one of the most liberal House members saying we need to internalize this. I can tell you that is for sure what some of the more endangered House members who are looking ahead 10 months from now to the election in November are saying, I'm already in trouble because they are representing very red districts. They're already saying that because they're hearing it from their constituents back home. One quick footnote, one thing that we are starting to hear from some of the rank and file Democrats is maybe we throw out this big health care bill and just try to pass some of the things that we all really agree on. Unclear if that can happen, unclear how any of this will happen, but that is something that is starting to bubble up from the rank and file among Democrats.
Dana, thanks very much. Let's bring in the best political team on television. Let's not forget, guys, also that 1 week from tomorrow, the president delivers his State of the Union address before a joint session of the United States Congress. The options before the Democrats, David Gergen, right now are bad and worse.
Well, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't in some ways. If they pass this big health care bill now and force it down the throats of a lot of people, and that's what the populace will see, then they're going to get badly hurt. But if they go home without passing major health care legislation, they're going to lose their base. So it's quite clear that they're going to have to come out with something that's slimmed down. I think that there are various provisions with regard to insurance reform that I think they could pass with some Republican support. But I think that the chances to getting universal access, which has been this dream now since going all the way back to Harry Truman and Franklin Roosevelt, that dream may well have gone smashed tonight. Paul Begala and I were there.
Paul
We've been
Begala?
here before, Paul.
You know, it depends on how these guys react.
Which guys?
The Democrats in the House and the Senate. I do not discount this. This is an enormously important political event. And yet, the simple math is still the Democrats have gone from having the largest majority in 33 years to the second largest majority in 33 years. That's just the math. But the chemistry is different. In his memoir, Teddy Kennedy said the Senate is a chemical place. And he's right. And I'm not sure how much the chemistry changes. Dana is over there in the House right now. The chemistry is clearly changing there. But the Democrats have got to decide whether they're more likely to lose their seat, because it's the jobs issue that will drive this. Will they lose their job if they don't pass health insurance reform, or are they more likely to lose their job if they do?
But there are moderate Democrats now saying, look at what happened to Martha Coakley. I come from a red district, as Dana was talking about. I cannot possibly vote for anything right now because my job is endangered. Forget the 10% unemployment out there. It's their jobs that are in danger right now. And this question of whether you could do some kind of a slimmed down bill, the question really is, if Barack Obama said, okay, we agree on insurance reform and we'll put some malpractice reform in there and we'll cut a deal, would Republicans think that it was in their self-interest to give Barack Obama any kind of a success?
How about this proposal? Why don't you take the Massachusetts proposal, which Scott Brown voted for when he was a state senator, put that before him.
It's going to take a lot of time.
You know, he voted for the Massachusetts reform.
But this is the way it was sold. It's been much more expensive than what we were told.
They got the most expensive health care in the nation. I don't think you're going to get Republicans or Democrats to vote for that.
Mr. Brown,
but how about a
Here's the problem that I see the Democrats have, especially the president and his aides at the White House. Joe, let me bring you in, and then Alex. There have been 3 recent statewide elections. In Virginia, a state the president carried; in New Jersey, a state the president carried decisively; and in Massachusetts, a state the president carried decisively. Guess who won all 3 of those states? Republicans. Absolutely. That sends a pretty powerful message.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's more than one factor, too, because what you have to have in order to have something like this, you got to have the environment. Certainly the environment was out there. People were angry, they were upset, they're concerned about the health care bill. But then you also have to have a candidate who isn't quite right, who isn't gelling with the community, with the voters out there. So you put all those things together, and then there's the midterm effect with this president. I mean, John King was so right. This president has just now reached the 1-year point. He was at the apex of its power. It's now gone, and it's probably not going to get any better during this entire midterm year.
But, you know, terrible environments make for horrible candidates. It's not coincidence that the Democrats had a tough time putting together good campaigns in these 3 states. Look, if you're defending the Obama agenda and you can't hide in Massachusetts, you can't hide anywhere. The best John McCain could do in any congressional district in Massachusetts was 44%. Scott Brown carried that tonight. Do you know how many other districts in America are worse for Democrats that Democrats have to defend? We counted them today. 76 where John McCain actually did better than that. And Obama Democrats. So those if Republicans pick up half of those, that's
well,
de
let me just get Paul, because he understands this better than I do. If someone like Ed Markey, the congressman from Massachusetts, would have been the candidate, would he have done better than Martha Coakley?
Yes, I think he'd probably won. Certainly Joe Kennedy, the former congressman, Senator Robert Kennedy's son, Teddy's nephew. Joe would have won in a landslide. There was a lot of talk about Joe running for that. So again, I don't discount this, but candidates matter most. They matter most. Campaigns matter most. And Alex, let me pick up on Alex's point.
Sitting here and saying, you know, Joe Kennedy's a great guy, but it's a shame he's not Ted Kennedy, and I can't believe he's that distant from the people.
Here's the question. Alex said Democrats can't defend the Obama agenda. What they need to do is stop playing defense and start playing offense. They need to attack. They need to say, where's your plan for the deficit? Here's the federal budget, Mr. Brown. What are you going to cut? You're going to close the Department of Education? That's what Newt Gingrich wanted to do. What are you going to do? What's your plan for the deficit?
The problem
Obama
is,
has one. He's got to produce a budget.
But the problem is, in just a year, the president went from being the outsider candidate to being the insider. And this is an anti-insider election. And Barack Obama was seen as somebody who said it was okay to cut deals behind closed doors on health care reform, and people didn't like it.
Stand by, guys. We're going to continue this discussion, but we have a lot more coming up. A reminder, the President of the United States will deliver the State of the Union address 1 week from tomorrow. Next Wednesday, January 27th, CNN's coverage will begin at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll also have a lot more on this historic Massachusetts vote. But right now, let's go back to Anderson in Haiti. Anderson?
Yeah, Wolf, thanks very much. It was incredibly dramatic today, on a day today here in Port-au-Prince on many different levels. But number one, a woman pulled out of the rubble alive after 7 days. She is in her 70s. We were there when the rescue took place. We are going to introduce you to this woman. She is getting medical attention right now on a U.S. ship. Coast Guard airlifted her out. We're going to have all the dramatic developments on this and all the day in Port-au-Prince. We'll be right back.